Earlier this week, the Nigerian President Muhammadu Buhari has announced that the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation posted a profit of after tax of 287 billion naira. President Buhari, who is also the Minister of Petroleum Resources, while making the declaration, said the development was consistent with his administration's commitment to ensuring prudent management of resources and maximization of value for the Nigerian people from their natural resources. This is the first time the NNPC will be declaring such profit in its 44 years of existence. What are the implications of this on the Nigerian economy today and in the future? A petroleum engineer and oil and gas analyst, Bala Zakka, will be answering some of these questions and others. Bala Zakka, thank you very much for joining us in the studio today.
Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome. Well, I know you are also a chartered accountant and you have knowledge of finance. Before you joined us, we were discussing GDP growth, which was also the other good news that the federal government announced during the course of the week. And this is about Nigeria having recorded GDP growth of about 5.01% year on year, and how this is an indication of prudent management of the economy by the Buhari administration. What's your take? Is it something we should be jubilating about? And this is a subject I was trying to discuss with Dr. Austin Nweze from Abakaliki before we lost the audio connection with him. But you are here, you're a petroleum engineer, you are also a man of figures. First, let's start with that before we move on.
Yeah, thank you very much. When I heard about the growth in GDP, I was impressed. But in my usual self, we're talking about Nigeria this time around. And in the context of Nigeria, I like being as practical as possible. And from the GDP point of view, fine, the figures have been presented, but I also want to look at something very clear here. When I talk about the context of, in the context of Nigeria, I'm more interested in mathematics rather than statistics, because in mathematics, 1 + 1 is 2. But in statistics, 1 + 1 is equal to X plus an error margin. And that error margin can be from 1 to probably 100. When you look at the GDP variables straight away, I mean, look at the consumption index. As far as I'm concerned, the minimum wage is about 30,000 naira a month, but I know that the disposable income has been eroded. We know the inflation today in Nigeria. Then move to the investment index. As far as I'm concerned, Nigeria is still experiencing serious business climate hostilities. And to that extent, well, I will be very happy if investors, whether local or foreign, will come in to contract. But to a reasonable extent, I have my serious concerns there. Then even when you look at the balance of trade, I don't know what we've really been exporting when you talk about the production of goods and services. Because it's when you talk about goods and services that you produce, I mean, that you can talk about GDP here. Then also, I mean, we were made to understand that, especially when you talk about the non-oil sector, we were made to understand that there has been improvement in trade. Fantastic. There has also been improvement in telecommunications and also road transport. But to a reasonable extent, we know how our roads look like. Then when we were also told that, I mean, there has been improvement in agriculture. For somebody who is from an area where people are practically farmers, I know how much a bag of fertilizer costs today. It's very, very expensive, and people can't even go to the farms. Then finally, even in that area, we heard about manufacturing. But I also have an idea of the cost of diesel as we speak, and I know what it has done to so many people who are actually producing. The operating cost is very high. But I'm very happy with the statistical figures, but I'm here more interested in the mathematics and the practicalities. I hope that the bottle of a sachet of water, which is just like a cup of water, that is about 20 naira, will get to 15 naira. sooner than later. I will appreciate it if a liter of petrol gets to probably 100 or 120 naira before the end of this year or before the end of the first quarter of next year.
Well, but, Mr. Zakka, I think we have to place this in context. What the report from the NBS was saying is that this is a year-on-year report, which means that as at the second quarter of 2020, now second quarter 2021, we have done better. The highest growth recorded since 2014, as opposed to quarter-on-quarter growth. So to that extent, can you really fault what has been reported? Because you may be talking about a different thing from the year-on-year as opposed to the quarter-on-quarter.
You see, when we talk about GDP, you're talking about goods and services that have been produced. And as far as I'm concerned, that was why I said I wouldn't want to be academic here. I would want to be very practical. Everybody knew what happened in 2020. The whole world suffered from that calamity. Everything about movement was probably brought to a halt. So that was clear. So if you're talking in relative terms, fine and good. And that's why I have concerns in situations like this with statistics. But like I said, what moving forward now, we have seen growth, right? What will be the cost of a sachet of pure water before the end of this year? What will be the cost of a liter of diesel before the end of 2021? What will be the cost of a bag of fertilizer before the end of 2021? As a loyal citizens, we will always be happy if our political and our economic leaders are doing right, are doing well. But we need to also point out, the figures are out. We hope we will continue to maintain that. But I want to see the practical, effect on citizens of Nigeria.
Okay, but what would be your recommendations to government to sustain this growth and to ensure that we're not talking just about nominal GDP growth, but also real GDP growth? What would be your recommendations?
Well, I will encourage the government to do something because Nigerians, whether individual or corporate citizens, are groaning under pains. And we all know that there is insecurity. People can't go to the farms. Even the elderly or the matured people, in those days, probably 5 or 10 years before retirement, people would want to build their retirement homes, go back to the villages, retire and help in improving or increasing food sufficiency. But today, people cannot go back because people get hacked to death. We were planning to do something about rural-urban migration, but today it's inevitable because it's even worse in the villages compared to the cities. So whatever government can do in trying to do something about the rascality of bandits or terrorists will be appreciated. Then as far as other aspects are concerned, for people who are probably in the cities, anything that can be done to lower the cost of energy or power, we will appreciate it. Because as I speak to you, you have we're talking about 200 million citizens, including strategic industrial sectors, strategic domestic sectors, and strategic commercial sectors, relying on less than 10,000 megawatts of electricity to generate energy or power. So if government can do something about that, it will be appreciated. Definitely, the manufacturing sector will boom. The telecom sector will do well, and other sectors will definitely do well. And to that extent, people will be able to respond or comply with their civic obligations of paying whether taxes, levies, or royalties.
Okay, very quickly, you've already answered most of the questions in that regard. But, okay, you raised a question about cost, about rising prices, the likelihood. Is that what you expect in the next quarter, or you are just speculating?
Well, I will be happy if it goes down, and it depends on the economic managers in this case. But the facts need to be pointed out. Like I keep saying, I wouldn't want a situation where the operating cost of pure water, pure water will get so high to the point where it will be cheaper to import pure water than to produce in Nigeria. I will not be happy if we get to the point where, operating costs will be so high to the point where we will continue to experience medical tourism. I wouldn't be happy if a place like this studio that I came to will continue to run on diesel to the point where it will no longer be economical for them to be able to have power to run activities. Because we're talking about the economy this time around, and something must happen internal. We're not talking about diaspora remittances now. We're not talking about grants that we are going to get. We're talking about our ability to produce goods and services that will make us to be able to sustain ourselves economically and to grow the country. And we're talking about a situation where, in the context of Nigeria, growth is not enough. But we are talking about development.
Okay, Engineer Zakka, let's take on the other big news during the week. NNPC posting profit of 287 billion naira, the best record in 44 years. And those who have heard that have said, look, this would defray speculations and assumptions about the performance of the NNPC. The NNPC making such huge profit, something that has never happened in the history of the corporation. What's your take on that? Do you think that the jubilation is in order?
Well, when I heard it, and I saw 44 years, the first question I asked myself was, where was I 44 years ago? I discovered that I was just starting primary school, And between that time and now, we've had many people who are now commissioners, probably governors, who are directors, who were probably not born. But I was surprised. But anything that has to do with positivity, I will always appreciate it, especially in the context of Nigeria as a loyal citizen. But I will want to hold my breath or comment for now, because the audited report is not out. By the time the audited report is out, I will be very happy to see what the external auditor predicated it on, to be able to come out with their experience with their expression of opinion of true and fair view. So I will be very happy if we can receive the audited report sooner than later. But definitely after seeing it, I will make my comments.
Well, as somebody who had worked for so many years in the oil and gas sector, are you saying that it's likely that the auditors will give a qualified opinion, assessment?
Well, it depends. One thing about auditors is they will work based on what you have given them or you have given to them. And that's why when it's for a report to really be qualified by an auditor, there must have been probably what we call window dressing. When you talk about audit and things like and qualifying reports, and in this context, people either avoid taxes or they evade taxes. Before now, tax avoidance was not criminal. It's you taking advantage of the loopholes, in tax laws, and you avoid taxes. And we technically call that creative accounting, though today is being seen as something that is morally wrong. In other words, if you are somebody who have that dexterity, and you discover that something is wrong, you can avoid the taxes, but why not help the government to do the right thing? The one that is outright criminal is what we call tax evasion, because in that case, you window dress, you cooked up the account so that you will look good. And that was why I said I will really, really be happy to see the audited report, and I will first of all look at how they arrive at their profit after tax. And from there, I will make my comments.
Okay, well, just to put this on the table, President Buhari, in that statement, directed the NNPC to make the audited accounts available to Nigerians as soon as possible. How soon? I guess nobody knows, considering the fact that under Dr. Ibe Kachuku, as Minister of State for Petroleum Resources, we had the management accounts. There were also reports of audit up to 2019, but have you seen any of those audited reports? And what's the guarantee that the NNPC this time around will make those audited reports available so that all Nigerians can take a look at the report and subject it to appropriate scrutiny?
Well, I saw some of them, but to be fair to Ibe Kachuku, I think Ibe Kachuku found himself in a very, very difficult position. Because I remember when Ibe Kachuku went to, was it Baramatu or somewhere, and people were carrying him on their shoulders and were moving up. And then the message or the gospel then was that there were going to be modular refineries everywhere. And people were going to will enjoy the sufficiency of petrol. And I debunked that, and I said it straight away. Modular refineries don't even produce petrol because they are not equipped with what we call catalytic cracking units. So in real sense, modular refineries don't even create jobs. Then just before he left, we noticed that some of these refineries were operating at probably zero capacity when you talk about refining. So I kept asking myself, I know so much about the other upstream arm, which is MPDC. I know about others. So I kept wondering where the profits were going to come from. So, as far as I'm concerned, based on what I saw and Nigerians saw, based on the reports that were coming out, we were probably refining something close to nothing. So where were the products coming from? But those are discussions for another day, or we've decided to move past them.
Yes,
and we're looking forward, really.
Which takes me to the next question. There are Nigerians who have expressed concerns. And the question that they raise is what you have alluded to. They ask, is it possible for an entity like NNPC with loss-making refineries, with all the leakages within the system, with reports indicating that some of the refineries have made zero profit? So they ask the question, where is the profit coming from? Now, today, this morning, Mr. Atedo Peterside, I'm sure you know him, chairman of Stanbic IBTC, former founder of Stanbic IBTC, former chairman of Guinness and many other companies. He said, look, could it be the case that the NNPC has dipped its fingers into the cookie jar in some aspects of the economy to be able to come up with those profits? And the way some other people explained that concern by Mr. Peterside is that, look, maybe NNPC is quoting dividends that should go direct to the Federation account. And those independent entities, as you know, including the Nigerian Gas Company, the West African Gas Company, the Nigerian LNG, that maybe what we have is the NNPC consolidating the dividends of those independent entities. Would that amount, as Peterside puts it, into dipping fingers into the cookie jar?
Like I said, first of all, I'm a loyal Nigerian, and I wouldn't want to preempt anything that will come out from the audited report. But I'm also happy that I'm reasonably probably educated and exposed. I started by saying 44 years ago, I was probably in primary school just about starting. So if somebody is telling me that NNPC has not made profit of any sort at all in the last probably 43 years, and NNPC is just making profit now, I have honestly so many things I will have asked. I really would have said, is it because there are plans to go to direction X? There are plans we are looking towards direction Y, or is something coming up on the Z axis, and that's why all these things are coming up. But people will say, why not wait until you see the audited report, and then you put your professional thinking cap, read or study it line after line, and make your comments. I'm sure some people are likely to challenge me and say, why not wait? But honestly, when the report is out, I will wear my cap as a practicing petroleum engineer, as a chartered accountant, and as a chartered tax practitioner. Study it. I won't read it. I will study it line after line, then make my comments.
Okay, but there are certain ineluctable facts. If you look at the quantum of barrels per day that we produce. If you look at the chart, saying in the last 4 years, the lowest production rate was 1.56 million barrels per day in the fourth quarter of 2020.
Correct.
Yeah, and if you go a little back, you will see that during the year 2020 with COVID-19, with the production quota being adjusted by the NNPC and the crisis with COVID, production went down per day. Now, with the lowest in about 6 years, being quarter four of 2020. So where could the profit have come from? Do you really need to wait for the audited reports? These are facts that are available out there in terms of production.
We live
and our cost of production per barrel is one of the highest in the world.
Exactly. We live in a country where sometimes people wouldn't want you to be fair. If there is something sometimes I say about politicians, it's only in Nigeria that you see a politician telling you that I will construct a 10-kilometer road for you if you elect me. But as at the time that politician is talking, he doesn't know anything about the soil chemistry of his area. He doesn't know how much a tipper of laterite costs. He doesn't know how much a tipper of probably granite costs. He doesn't even know the bag of cement. So this is the kind of place we are. And like I said, most important, a lot of people will say, why not wait? But by the time you look at all the variables, you will know that things are not adding up, just like the GDP. I mean, you can look at the consumption index. You know the inflation. You can look at the investment index. We know the business climate hostilities going on. You can look at our balance of trade. But somebody said, or the body saddled with that responsibility said the GDP grew. So in context like that, honestly, I wouldn't want people to think I'm not a loyal citizen, but practical things are practical things. And that's why in context like this, I don't like being academical. I would want to be as practical as possible. I would not want to rely on statistics. I would rather prefer to rely on mathematics.
Okay, final question. Although you are not in the dock. Now that the NNPC is going to become a public liability company, limited company, do you think that these figures that have now been announced of a profit after tax, do you think there's any connection with the future of the NNPC?
Well, it depends, I mean, we know how companies, what will make a company to go public. We know when a company is called a limited liability company, we know things that are supposed to be associated with it. For now, all we can do is to hope that our economic managers will do well. I was also made to understand that nobody will be disengaged from NNPC. The same staff that have been running or managing NNPC, and we've been experiencing losses and wherever, they are GMs, they are wherever, they are the same human capital that we are going to use. My hope or suggestion is this. It's very clear that they are going to be moved into another horizon, and because they are the same staff that will be used to achieve the vision and mission of post-PIB NNPC, we know that they will require some training, because there is every likelihood of knowledge gaps and other things. So all we hope is let them be given and be equipped with the necessary skills. But our hope is that they will succeed.
Well, thank you very much, Engineer Bala Zakka, for joining us on This Day Live, this Sunday talk show. And thank you also for your insights.
Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed.